let me share something very real with you. Before coming to the UK, I thought I knew what to expect, and I thought London would be beautiful, and Oxford will be academic. And the countryside will be peaceful. But after actually being here, after walking through these places, after feeling them with my own body and emotions, I realized something very different. These are not just places, they are actually three complete different ways of living, three different rhythms of life, and even three different states of mind. And what made this journey even more meaningful is that we didn't just come here as tourists. We came here bringing Xuemo's works into this environment, into the Oxford Literary Festival, where on March the 29th at Magdalen College, there will be a real dialogue between British culture and Chinese culture, and Xuemo is actually the only Chinese writer invited this time. So for me, this journey is not just about seeing places. It's not about understanding something deeper, how different cultures live, think, and search for meaning in complete different ways. So we arrived at London first. So because this is where everything began, and I have to be very honest with you, London is not just beautiful. London is intense, like really intense in a way that you don't fully understand until you are actually inside it. Because everything moves fast here, people walk fast, talk fast, think fast, and even when you are just standing there, you feel like you are already behind. Like the city is pushing you forward all the way, all the time. And when we stood in front of Big Ben, which looks so calm and stable, almost like it doesn't belong to time, I suddenly noticed something interesting. Because around it, everything was chaotic. Tourists, traffic, noise, movement, and it created this strong contrast. Hi to the new friends here, please subscribe our channel. Hi, the true Daniel, hello. So our channel is mainly about the spiritual wisdom and human warmth found in the works by the Chinese writer, Mr. Xuemo. So please subscribe our channel if you're new here. So the first destination in the UK is the London. And it created strong contracts, this feeling that the world is constantly moving, but something inside you needs to stay still. Otherwise, you get completely overwhelmed. And that's when I started thinking about Xuemo's work, because he always talks about the inner world, about how your heart should not be controlled by the outside environment. And I realized that in a city like London, if you don't have that inner stability, you will very easily lose yourself in the speed, in the pressure, in the constant comparison with others. And that's why London is powerful, but at the same time, it can also be very exhausting. We are bringing Xuemo's work to the world. I'm doing the live stream to share Xuemo's works. Yes. Also, another way to bring Xuemo's work to the world. And by the London Book Fair, by the live stream, and we arrived in Oxford. Here I am. And the moment we stepped into this city, everything changed in a way that is actually very hard to describe unless you feel it yourself, because suddenly the speed dropped, the noise disappeared, and there was this quiet atmosphere that is not empty. but full of thinking, full of reflection, full of history. And what impressed me the most is that Oxford doesn't try to impress you in an obvious way. It doesn't shout, it doesn't complete your attention. Instead, it invites you to slow down and think. And when you walk through those old streets, when you see students sitting there reading or just quiet cycling, you begin to understand that this place is not about showing success. It's about searching for truth, and that is why it feels so meaningful that Xuemo is here. Because his works are also not about external achievement. They're about inner awareness, about understanding life at a deeper level. So when his ideas enter a place like Oxford, something very natural happens. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like a continuation of the same question: what is life and how should we live it? Hi, hello, the new friends here. Please subscribe our channel. Please subscribe our channel. Thank you so much. And then we left both cities and we went to the countryside for a short visit, specifically the Cotswolds. Have you heard about that? Hi, Luke. Hello, welcome. What is love? I think there is like petty love, small love, and great love. Maybe there is a party in the hotel. So very crowded and noisy here. Oh, all these beautiful young girls and the young guys. Which many people say, the Cotswolds, which many people say is the most beautiful countryside in England. Okay, what is love? Love. I'm not the author. Xuemo is the author. Xuemo. Our channel's name is also Xuemo. So there is small love and great love. So the small love is about maybe more about the desire and the ownership. But the great love, it is selflessness. If you are interested in love, I think I will recommend you one book, Selected Stories by Xuemo. And this book is available on Amazon. There are 4 short stories in this book about the Western China. And the first story is a man called Old Man Xinjiang. And I think that is a very romantic love. So, Selected Story by Xuemo. And speaking about the Cotswolds, which many people say is the most beautiful countryside in England, and I can tell you, it really is something else, because the moment you arrive, you feel like you have entered a completely different world. There is no pressure, no rush, no constant noise, just small stone houses, open fields, sheep walking slowly as if time doesn't matter. And what surprised me the most is not how beautiful it looks, but how it makes you feel. Because suddenly you realize how tense your body has been in the city, how your mind has been constantly busy, and here, without anyone telling you to relax, you just naturally slow down. And this made me think very deeply about something. Maybe happiness is not something we need to chase all the time. Maybe it is something that appears when we stop chasing. And this is where it connects again to Xuemo's writings, especially his descriptions of the desert Because even though the desert and the countryside look completely different, one dry and one green, they share the same essence, which is simplicity, silence, and a kind of truth that you cannot find in busy environment.
Oh, they're stood outside chatting already. I know what to go there.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. So after experiencing all these places, I started to see a pattern, and I realized that London, Oxford, and the countryside are not just physical locations. They actually represent three different states of human life. Because London is about speed, ambition, and external achievement, Oxford is about thinking, questioning, and intellectual exploration, and the countryside is about stillness, presence, and inner peace. I really want to live there for like 2 or 3 months. So I can feel a very special, energy there in the countryside. And the most interesting thing is that these are not fixed places. They exist inside all of us. Because there are moments in your life when you are in London mode, constantly rushing, chasing goals, comparing yourself with others, and there are moments when you enter Oxford mode, when you start questioning things, reflecting on your life, trying to understand deep meanings, and then there are rare moments when you reach countryside mode, when everything becomes quiet, when you feel present, when you are not trying to. And you real question, it's not which place is better. My colleague is just passing by. And the real question is not which place is better, but which state you are living in most of the time. So, this is exactly why bringing Xuemo's works into this journey matters so much. Because his writing is not about telling you what to achieve, it's about helping you understand where you are, helping you see your own state, whether you are lost in speed, stuck in confusion, or searching for peace. And when these ideas are placed into real environments, like London, Oxford, and the countryside, they become very concrete, very real, no longer abstract philosophy, but something you can actually feel and experience. That is what this journey is really about. Not just visiting places, but using these places as mirrors to understand ourselves, to ask ourselves honestly, are we living too fast? Are we thinking deeply enough? And do we ever allow ourselves to truly be still? Hi, Lalisa, you are French. I've been to France. I've been to France like 8 years ago, and it really impressed me. It really impressed me. It is like a mixed culture city, and I'd really like to go there, go back again to France. Yes, look. The more we learn, we realize that we know so less. So less. Oh, okay. Do I believe in God? I think God is some very different expression about the existence. why this existence is appear, because actually the truth, the final truth is only one. There is only one final truth in the world, but because of different crowds, different cultures, and different people, they have their own recognition of the truth and expression for the truth. So there are different gods and like heavens, different saying, different expression. There is only one truth, actually. And when we talk about British culture and Chinese culture, I think many people stay at a very surface level, like food, language, history, but after actually being here, after walking through London, Oxford, and even the countryside, I started to feel that the real difference is actually in how people understand life itself. Because in cities like London, there is a very strong focus on the individual, on personal success, and on building an identity that is recognized by society. And this creates a kind of forward-moving energy that is very powerful, but also very demanding. While in traditional Chinese philosophy, especially in the kind of thinking that Xuemo represents, there is a very different direction. It is not so much about becoming someone in the eyes of the others, but about understanding yourself, about calming your inner world, about reaching a kind of harmony between you and life itself. And when these two ways of thinking meet in a place like Oxford, which is already a place of reflection and questioning, it creates a very interesting space where people are not trying to prove who is right, but are actually trying to understand each other. And I think this is something that the world really needs right now. Not more competition, but more dialogue. Hi, so many new friends here. Please subscribe our channel if you're new here. Individual. Yes, more. Thank you. Please subscribe our channel. Thank you so much. So this is also why I think events like the Oxford Literary Festival are so important. Because a literary festival is not just about books, it is actually a space where ideas travel across borders, where people from different backgrounds come together not to sell something quickly, but to exchange something meaningful. And when Xuemo's work enters this kind of space, it is not just representing one author, it is representing a way of thinking that comes from a very long cultural tradition. And at the same time, it is also being tested, being questioned, being understood in a completely different cultural environment. And I think this kind of interaction is very valuable because it forces both sides to go deeper, to move beyond stereotypes, and to actually engage with the essence of what they believe. If you really pay attention to the buildings here, especially in London and Oxford, you will start to notice something very interesting. Because architecture is not just about design, it actually reflects the personality of a culture. In London, you see this combination of very old structures and very modern buildings, almost competing for attention, which reflects a culture that is constantly evolving, constantly negotiating between tradition and innovation. While in Oxford, the buildings feel more unified, more consistent, almost like they are protecting a certain way of thinking, a certain continuity of knowledge. And then when you go to the countryside, like the Cotswolds, the buildings almost disappear into the landscape. They don't try to dominate. They try to belong. And this made me think that maybe architecture is actually telling us something about how people see their relationship with the world, whether they want to control it, understand it, or live in harmony with it. So being in the countryside also made me realize something that I think we often ignore in modern life, which is how much our environment shapes our inner state. Because when you are in a place like London, with constant movement and stimulation, your mind naturally becomes more active, more restless, always looking for the next thing. But when you are in a quiet place like the Cotswolds, something very different happens. Your thoughts slow down, your breathing changes, and you start to notice things that you would normally ignore, like the sound of the wind, the rhythm of your own steps, and even your own emotions become clearer. And this made me think that maybe inner peace is not only something we create from within. It is also something that is supported by the environment we choose to be in. Creating, so look your message. You think our creativity and life, the world we live will influence our, of course, we influence the world and environment influence us. Do you think so? Yes. Before we became so noisy and chaotic, most of the place is very calm. So I want to share something a bit more personal here, because before this trip, I didn't really realize how much I was affected by speed, by pressure, by constantly doing things. But after moving between London, Oxford, and the countryside, I started to notice my own changes. Like in London, I felt more alert, more tense, always thinking about what's next. In Oxford, I felt more reflective, more curious, asking myself deeper questions. And in the countryside, I felt something I don't experience very often, which is simply being at ease, not trying to achieve anything, not trying to prove anything, just being present. And this made me realize that maybe we don't need to completely change our lives, but we do need to be aware of which state we are in and whether that state is actually good for us. Xuemo's live session will begin 1.5 hours later. Yes. 1.5 hours later. This is a small cup of coffee. Just being is very nice. So this is also why Xuemo's works are very relevant in this kind of journey, because his writing is not telling you to escape the world, it is not telling you to reject success or ambition, but it is helping you understand how to stay balanced within all these different environments. Whether you are in a fast city, a reflective academic space, or a quiet natural environment, his work always brings you back to the same question. What is happening inside you, and how can you become more aware, more free, and more at peace within yourself? Shenya, hello, welcome. How to gain freedom? I think the freedom is about master your mind. so that you can master your own destiny. That can be called freedom. What do you think? So before we talk about how can we become free, gain freedom. So what is freedom? Yes, we are always swallowed by the thinking, the many thinkings, hundreds, thousands, millions of thinkings. Yeah. So this also brings me to something I've been thinking about a lot during this trip, which is what it really means for a Chinese writer to walk into the world, to step into a space like the Oxford Literary Festival and to sit in a place like Magdalen College, having a conversation with people from completely different cultural backgrounds, because I think many people might see this as just another literary event, just another international appearance. But when you are actually here, when you see how people listen, how they respond, how they try to understand something that comes from a very different tradition, you begin to realize that this is actually something much deeper, because this is not just about one writer. It is about whether a certain kind of wisdom, a certain way of seeing life can travel across language, across culture, and still touch people in a meaningful way. Hi, hello. I am Chinese. I'm from China, and now I'm in the UK. Hello, CX, Harriet. Hi, Insane. Hello, welcome. Please subscribe our channel if you're new here, and give me some likes for support. And I think that what makes Xuemo's work special in this context is that he's not trying to simply represent China in a superficial way. He is not trying to explain culture as something exotic or distant. Instead, he's speaking about something very fundamental, which is the human condition itself. Things like suffering, confusion, desire, inner conflict, the search for meaning, and these are not Chinese problems or Western problems. These are human problems, so when his works are translated into more than 20 languages and enter different countries, what is really happening is not just cultural export. It is actually a kind of a dialogue at the level of human experience, where people from completely different backgrounds suddenly realize that they are asking the same questions, feeling the same struggles, and searching for similar answers in different ways. And this is why I think a Chinese writer going global is not about entering a market in a commercial sense. Although, of course, there is also a practical side to it, but more importantly, it is about whether a voice that comes from a different civilizational background can be heard, can be understood, and can contribute something meaningful to the global conversation about life. Because right now, if you look at the world, there is a lot of noise, a lot of speed, a lot of pressure. And in that kind of environment, people are actually looking for something deeper, something more stable, something that can help them understand themselves. And this is where I feel Xuemo's works have a very unique position, because it brings in this perspective of inner awareness, of stepping back, of observing the mind, which is something that resonates very strongly, especially when people feel overwhelmed by modern life. Wow, Scott, you know Li Bai. So you are interested in Chinese culture, or are you Chinese? Yes, it's hard. Look, it's hard to be aware of our inner status, because we usually just reactive, just act without awareness, but just like karmic habit. Hi, Chinchilla. Hello, Peter. Hi, Scott. Look, hello, welcome. Please subscribe our channel if you're new here. So I also want to be very real about another layer of this, which is that bringing a Chinese writer into the international space is not always easy because language is one barrier, cultural context is another, and even the way stories are told can be very different. So what we are doing here is not just presenting books. We are also building bridges slowly, patiently, allowing people to approach something that might feel unfamiliar at first, but becomes meaningful once they engage with it. And I think this process itself is very valuable because it is not about quick success, it is about long-term connection. Hi, Abish. Hi, Scott. You are from Scotland. Yes, the Chinese history is very interesting. So you are very interested, right? I'm now in the UK, in the Oxford. Naja, Calgary. Thank you for your. Oh, Chila. Glad to hear that you are in love with the Chinese culture. Then you should read Xuemo. Really? You can search for Xuemo, Xuemo on Amazon, and it is available on Amazon. Or you can also check our official website, shop.xuemo.com. Yes, something will be missing in the process of translation, but there's nothing we can do. The only thing we can do is to cooperate with the best translators in the world, like the one who has translated the Nobel Prize translator, Howard Goldblatt and Silver Chunling, have translated over 10 works, 10 titles of Xuemo's works. Oh, Jackie Chan is so famous. Hi, Miss Cool. California Hotel. Hotel California. It is a beautiful song, right? Hi, Cockroach. Hi, Miss Cool. Miss Cool. Hello. If you are new here, please subscribe our channel. So, for those who are watching right now, if you feel curious about this, if you want to understand what kind of work can travel across cultures in this way, then you can actually explore Xuemo's books yourself because they are already available globally. You can find them on Amazon, where many of his translated works are listed. And if you are looking for a more complete collection, you can also visit our official website, shop.xuemo.com, where we have a much wider range of titles available and can ship to many countries around the world. And I think reading these works is not just about understanding one writer, it is also a way to experience a different perspective on life, one that might challenge the way you usually think, or maybe even help you see something about yourself that you have not noticed before. And in a way, this is what this whole journey is really about. It's not just about London, not just about Oxford, not just about the countryside in the UK, and not even just about the literary event. It is about whether we can create moments like this where different cultures meet not in conflict, but in understanding, where ideas are not competing, but enriching each other, and where a book is not just something you read and forget, but something that stays with you, quietly changing the way you see the world and maybe even the way you see yourself. How? Alkane. What a nice question. What's the meaning of the existence? So you need to read Xuemo, 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 because I have been asking the meaning of my life since my childhood. And I read 70 books a year. It's been about almost 20 years, 70 books per year. And no books except the Xuemo's books answers all the existence questions for me. So that's why I'm here bringing Xuemo's work to the world. We are doing these things. Yes, we want to illuminate more people's inner light. Yeah. So I also want to share with you something that I think is very important, because what we are doing here in the UK is not just attending one event or giving one talk. It is actually the result of many years of continuous effort, many years of slowly building connections, understanding different audience, and finding ways to bring a Chinese writer into an international space in a meaningful way. Because during this trip, we were not only present at one location, we were moving across different platforms, different communities, and even different layers of society. And each of these experiences showed us something different about how literature can travel and how ideas can connect with people. First of all, we participated in a 3-day book fair in the UK, and I think this is something that might sound simple on the surface, but if you understand how international publishing works, you will know that having an independent booth as a writer is actually very rare, especially in a highly competitive environment like Europe, where most booths are dominated by large publishers, agencies, or institutional representatives. So the fact that Xuemo had an independent booth representing his works directly was not only a logistical achievement, but also a sign that his work has reached a level where it can stand on its own in an international marketplace. And what makes this even more meaningful is that this is not something that happened overnight. We have been participating in European book fairs like this for at least 6 years, continuously, consistently, sometimes with immediate results, sometimes without, but always with the same intention, which is to open a space where these works can be seen, can be discovered, and can slowly build recognition over time. Hi, Yamas, how to be happiness? I think read Xuemo's works, and you will find the answer. So abide in the true mind. If you can train yourself to abide in your true mind, you will always feel blessing and happiness any moment. Everyone, where are you? I'm in Oxford. Hi to new friends here, please subscribe channel. So I think this is something that is very important to understand. Because when people talk about going global, they often imagine something quick, something instant, like entering a new market and immediately gaining attention. But in reality, especially in the world of literature, things move very differently. It is about persistence, about showing up again and again, about allowing people to encounter your work multiple times until it becomes familiar, until it becomes trusted. And I think this 6-year journey across European book fairs is actually a very real example of that kind of long-term commitment, where you are not just selling books, you are building presence, you are building credibility, and you are building a bridge between cultures. But what made this trip even more interesting is that it did not stop at the book fair. Because beyond the exhibition space, we were also invited into universities, into academic environments where the conversation becomes much deeper, much more reflective. And one of the key themes we brought into these dialogues is the idea behind reclaim the throne of your heart, which is essentially about helping people understand that their inner world should not be controlled by external circumstances. And when we shared this in different universities, what we noticed is that students and academics did not treat it as just a piece of literary. They engaged with it as a philosophical question, as something that relates directly to their own lives, their own pressures, their own struggles with identity and expectation. And this is where literature becomes something more than storytelling. It becomes a tool for reflection, a way for people to examine their own experience in a deeper way. And then we also invited to a very different kind of space, which is the Royal Overseas League, where the discussion was not only about literature, but about something broader, about how literature and art can contribute to the elevation of human consciousness. And I think this is a very powerful idea because it moves the conversation beyond individual success or even cultural exchange into something that is more universal, which is the question of how human beings can grow, how we can become more aware, more compassionate, more understanding. And in that setting, Xuemo's work was not presented as just a Chinese perspective, but as part of a larger conversation about what it means to be human and how creativity, whether through writing or other forms of art, can help us expand our awareness and transform the way we see the world. Hi, I'm Joanna. I'm introducing Xuemo's works to the world and hope more people's inner light can be illuminated. So if you are new here, please subscribe our channel. It's a space for growth. Hi, Superman. Hello. Jaden. Hello. So we were also invited to participate in dialogues with entrepreneurs discussing a concept that comes from Chinese thinking, which is the framework of 道德法术士, or in English, the way, the morality, the principles, the methods, and the trends, the timing or trend. And this is not something that is often discussed in a Western business context, where the focus is usually more on efficiency, strategy, and measurable results. But when we introduce this dimensional way of thinking, what we saw is that it actually opened up a very different perspective. Because instead of only asking how to grow a business, it begins by asking what kind of values are guiding that business, what kind of principles it is built upon, what methods it uses, and whether it is aligned with the larger trend of the time. And this kind of holistic thinking resonates with many people who feel that something is missing in purely profit-driven models. And it creates a space where business is not just about competition, but about responsibility, balance, and long-term clarity. Hi, Shaitan. You're back. Hi, Superman. Yes, I know 道德法术是 the 5 dimension of success, of yes, of a company. I'm Chinese, and we are bringing Xuemo's works to the world. So we are in London now. We are attending the London Book Fair. So when you look at all these experiences together, the book fair, the universities, the cultural institutions, and the business dialogues, you begin to see that what we are doing is not limited to one field. It is not just literature, it is not just culture, it is not just education or business. It is actually a kind of integrated approach where one core idea, which is the importance of inner awareness and clarity, is being explored across different contexts, and each context brings out a different aspect of that idea. In the book fair, it becomes visibility. In the university, it becomes reflection. In the cultural institution, it becomes a question of human development. And in the business dialogue, it becomes a framework for decision making and leadership. And I think this is what makes this journey meaningful, because it shows that literature is not something isolated. It is not something that only belongs to bookshelves. It is something that can enter real life, that can influence how people think, how they act, and even how they build systems, whether those systems are personal, academic, or organizational. And in that sense, bringing Xuemo's work into the UK is not just about introducing a writer. It is about introducing a way of thinking that can connect with people in different areas of life. And that is why this journey feels like more than a series of events. It feels like a process of opening conversations, of creating connections, and allowing something that originates in one culture to find its place in a global context. Thank you for your kind words. And for those of you who are watching, if you feel that this kind of a journey is meaningful, if you are curious about how these ideas actually look in written form, then you can explore Xuemo's works yourself, because they are available internationally. You can find them on Amazon, where different translated editions are listed. And if you want a more complete selection, including titles that may not be easily available elsewhere, you can also visit our official store at shop.xuemo.com, where we provide a wider range of books and can ship globally. And I think engaging with these works is not just about reading. It is about entering a conversation that starts from one writer, but ultimately leads back to your own life, your own thoughts, and your own understanding of what it means to live well in a complex and rapidly changing world. hi to the new friends here. Please subscribe our channel. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think after everything we've talked about today, from London to Oxford, from the countryside to the conversations we had in universities, cultural institutions, and even with entrepreneurs, what really stays with me is not just the places we visited, but the feeling that there is actually a thread connecting all of these experiences. Because whether we are talking about a fast-moving city like London, or a reflective environment like Oxford, or the quiet openness of the Cotswolds, in every one of these spaces, we are ultimately facing the same question, which is how we live our lives, how we deal with pressure, how we understand ourselves, and how we find a sense of balance in a world that is constantly changing. And I think this is why this journey is not just about travel. It is not even just about culture. It is actually about something very personal, something that relates to each and every one of us. Because if you think about it honestly, most of us spend a lot of time in what we might call a London state, always moving, always chasing, always trying to reach the next goal, and sometimes we enter an Oxford state where we begin to question things, to reflect, to search for meaning, but very rarely do we allow ourselves to enter that countryside state where we are simply present, where we are not trying to prove anything, not trying to compete, not trying to rush. And maybe the reason why that state feels so rare is because we are not taught how to access it. We are not told how to understand our own inner world in a deeper way. And this is exactly where I feel literature, especially the kind of work that Xuemo is doing, becomes meaningful, because it is not trying to tell you what to achieve. It is not trying to give you a fixed answer, but it is offering you a way to look inward, a way to observe your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own patterns, and to slowly understand yourself with more clarity. And I think that is something that is becoming more and more valuable in today's world, where there is so much information, so much noise, but not enough understanding. And I also want to say this very honestly, because everything we share today, whether it is participating in international book fairs, having an independent booth in Europe, being invited to universities, to the Royal Overseas League, or engaging in conversations with entrepreneurs, all of this might look like external achievements. But if there is one thing behind all of this, it is actually a very simple intention, which is to bring something meaningful to people, to create a space where people can pause, reflect, and reconnect with themselves. And I think that intention is what gives everything else its value. So if you have been listening to this live and something resonated with you, even just a small part, maybe a sentence, maybe a feeling, then I would really encourage you not to let that moment just pass. Because sometimes change does not come from something big. It comes from something very small that stays with you. Something that you continue to think about after this life ends. And if you want to take one step further, one very simple step, you can start to exploring Xuemo's works. Because they are already available globally. You can find them on Amazon. And if you want a more complete collection, you can also go to our official store, shop.xuemo.com, where we have a wider range of titles available and can ship to many countries. And you can just pick one book and book that speaks to you and begin from there. without pressure, without expectation, just as a way to start a conversation with yourself. And at the same time, if you feel that this kind of content, this kind of a journey is something you would like to continue exploring, then you can follow this channel, stay connected with us, because we will continue to share more experiences like this from different countries, different cultures, and different perspectives. And I think over time, what we are building here is not just an audience, but a community, a space where people who are thinking about life, who are searching for meaning, who are open to different ways of understanding the world, can come together and share something real. And maybe this is the most important part of everything we talk about today. That no matter where you are, whether you are in a busy city, a quiet town, or somewhere in between, the most important journey is not the one outside, but the one inside. And if today's conversation helped you take even one small step in that direction, then I think this time we spent together has already been meaningful. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I hope see you again very soon, either in another life, in another city, or maybe somewhere along your own journey. Hi, Deepika, hello, welcome. So, as usual, at the end of the live session, I will introduce Mr. Xuemo again. Mr. Xuemo has written over 80 titles with over 200 editions and have been translated into 28 languages. And again, we are here in Oxford. We just finished the London Book Fair in London. And we are invited to give the speech in the University of Bath, University of Bristol, and the University of London. And also we are the only Chinese writer who is invited to participate the Oxford Literary Festival. So, yes, we are the only Chinese writer invited to the Oxford Literary Festival. I'm so proud of that. So, and if you're new here, please subscribe our channel. We are mainly about the spiritual wisdom and human warmth found in works by the Chinese writer, Mr. Xuemo. Yes. And we hope that Xuemo's works can illuminate more people's inner light, and his works can answer your existence questions. And actually, we have been here in the UK for over 20 days, and it is a really lovely trip. We visited many places, and the next month we are heading to the United States. Xuemo has won many international awards. Yes. So this is Joanna, and I'm introducing Xuemo's works and bringing Xuemo's culture to the world. Hope to illuminate more people's inner light. If you're new here, please subscribe our channel again. Hi, Kartik. Yes, you know we are in the Oxford. Yes. And Xuemo's works are available on Amazon, both in paperback edition and Kindle edition. Also, we have 2 books. Xuemo has written 80 titles, but 2 of them have been, published in audio books. So one is the Love Letters from the Goddess, and the other is called the Chinese edition, 特别清凉. Okay, again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your companion. Power up your life. Read Xuemo. Okay, Xuemo, Xuemo. Okay, thank you. Good blessing from the UK. Thank you. Bye. Mr. Xuemo will do the live session on 5 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. Beijing time. Okay. Thank you. Bye.